Well, what we do know is that it was the Queen that pushed for Andrew to be that special advisor. We do know that the current king, when he was made the special envoy after leaving the Royal Navy, made it very clear that he didn't think it was a good idea. He thought that Andrew should just focus on doing royal duties and not take on an official role until, in terms of working alongside the government in this way, until it was cleared, until he fully understand what was involved. I'm sure that the king has got his head in his hands about this at the moment. This really is a seismic moment, I've said, for the monarchy. I do believe, well, nothing like this has ever happened before. And I didn't actually think it would, even with all the pressure, that it would actually reach that stage again. This is going to be a hugely complex case. And of course, he doesn't have immunity. The king can't be tried in his courts in this country. But we have this issue here that if there's evidence that comes out of here that the king knew, the king would actually have to give evidence in a court of law, that would collapse the case, like it did, if you remember, in 2002 with the Burrell case, where the Queen suddenly remembered she'd had been told things by Burrell that he was keeping Diana's things for safekeeping. Now, that led to the collapse of the case. It truly is a seismic moment for this country, and I think for the monarchy as well.
Do you think that the king is going to have something to say about this?
Well, if he doesn't, I think he should, because I think that at the end of the day, he is not only the head of state, he is also the head of the nation, if you like, and he's responsible for leading the monarchy, which is part of this constitutional parliamentary democracy. The problem, of course, will be now that this is a police case, and this means a lot of this conjecture that's been going on has to stop. Now, we have to wait and see if Andrew is actually charged. Once the moment is that he's charged with anything, then, of course, all this conjecture has to stop in the media and it becomes a police case. So that makes it difficult for the king to make a statement. But trust in the monarchy will be at an all-time low at the moment. And I think that at some stage, whether it's at the end of this or even just now, there needs to be some statement from the king and from the palace, and to make sure that people understand that this is an accountable institution that will going forward will be transparent and abide by the law. We had the Prime Minister this morning on television saying no one is above the law, and it looks like that's the case.
How serious a threat to the monarchy is this?
I think it is an existential threat. I think that the monarchy depends upon the trust of the people. It depends on, for the system to operate, they are an unelected institution. It may be, if the king is involved in being seen to be part of a cover-up, that it could have serious implications for him. And maybe, I don't know, maybe what goes forward. I mean, the two people that clearly are clear in all of this are William and Catherine. And it's clear, it seems, that William, I remember that William, many years ago when Andrew was at the Garter ceremony, wanted to go to the Garter ceremony, and William said, look, if he's there, I'm not going. And that was like 6 years ago. And he put his foot down.
But just to be clear, this all happened when the king was Prince of Wales, and we have no evidence that Andrew and the prince were then talking about these matters.
Well, I do know, I mean, we don't have evidence, no, but I do know that it was discussed, and I do know that the king and Andrew had a meeting and talked about it, and Andrew gave his reassurances, probably similar to what he said on the BBC, in that catastrophic Newsnight interview, that there was, he had nothing to hide, he hadn't done anything wrong. But I think this is a lot to do with the Epstein sexual allegations, not necessarily this stuff on his role as a misconduct in a public office. We did not know the extent of that, and we didn't know that until the Mandelson, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Britain and former person that was the former Washington ambassador, until he got arrested. So all of this has been emerging at a very fast rate, and the most important thing now is that he has to give evidence under caution. He has to give a witness statement under caution. We don't know if he's going to be charged yet. I should imagine that will take a bit of time, but this is a very fast-moving story, George, and historic.
Let me go back to James Long. Will we learn anything new, James?
Well, I think one of the things that stands out for me, George, is that the properties that are being searched now by the police, I mean, we're in this extraordinary situation where properties belonging to the king are being searched because, remember, Prince Andrew, as he was then, was moved from the home that he lived in Windsor to the Sandringham estate, which is the private estate of the king. It's not a public palace. This is owned by the royal family privately. So you ask whether or not the king would have given his permission for this to have happened. The police arriving at the king's private estate, one imagines there must have been some kind of coordination. The royal family have in the last few weeks been very, very clear about trying to move themselves away from this entire scandal, to lean in very heavily to speaking about the Epstein survivors. When asked about this, and Camilla, Charles, Edward, they've all been heckled in public spaces, asked about Andrew. They can feel the pressure over this, and time again, they have directed people to looking at the Epstein victims and saying that their hearts are with them, that the focus should be on them. So that is the palace's way of saying that we're on their side and that perhaps Andrew, they're going to cooperate with the police in as much as they can. But they are hamstrung here. You know, the King Charles, and as much as his effort will now be to try to save the monarchy, because let's make no bones about it, that is what this will be about for Buckingham Palace. At the same time, he's hamstrung because this is now a police investigation, so he will be limited in what he can say. And that is why I think whenever they are asked, they do say, well, our hearts are with the Epstein victims. Once again, we should separate what's happened here from the crimes that Epstein committed. This is about the relationship that Andrew seems to have had with Epstein beyond that, and the relationship that he had when he was trade envoy, sharing government secrets perhaps with Jeffrey Epstein as late as 2010. Nevertheless, the royal family knows about the optics of all this, and they will want to show that they are on the side of the public, not on Andrew's side.
And James, Robert Jobson said this is an existential threat, perhaps to the monarchy. We also know with these revelations about Peter Mandelson, the former trade minister, former ambassador to the United States for the UK, that this could also be a threat to the current British government.
Absolutely. Peter Mandelson was at the heart of the Labour movement. He was part of the Labour government with Tony Blair. He built Labour alongside Tony Blair and was in the Labour government at a time when he also seems to have been in communication with Jeffrey Epstein, sharing information with him as business envoy, and that for possibly, allegedly, financial gain on behalf of Peter Mandelson. So this goes to the heart of British institutions writ large, the monarchy and the British government. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister here, is fighting for his political life, make no bones about it. I mean, he's already in a very weak position politically, but his adversaries here in Britain, his political adversaries, have smelled blood with this Mandelson scandal. They're waiting perhaps later, and we have local elections here later in the year, when perhaps Keir Starmer might end up losing his position as Prime Minister as a result directly of this Epstein scandal, because of the closeness that he's perceived to have had with Peter Mandelson and his decision to make him ambassador to the United States. So on every level, Britain is being rocked by the Epstein scandal, George.
James Longman, thanks very much. As Robert Jobson said, seismic news out of the United Kingdom this morning. The former Prince Andrew has been arrested. We're going to return now to our regular program. We'll have much more on Good Morning America.